Hello Internet, welcome back to the Experimental Cataclysm. This is the weekly and or bi-weekly show in which we cover a lot of the new things that have come to Cataclysm, the experimental version of Cataclysm, over the last week or two. It's been 2 weeks since our last episode, and boy do I regret it because there is a ton of new stuff and a ton of stuff to talk about. Some of which I'm very excited about, some of which is just quality of life stuff. But either way, we're going to cover it. You probably will not see a timestamp listed on the screen, but you can find them in the descriptions down below, as well as links to every change that we're going to cover, in case you want to take a closer look at the descriptions, screenshots, or look at the code itself. You don't need the code, you can read the descriptions, which is basically what I do. But yeah, let's just jump into it, because I have a lot to cover. So we're going to start with some of the small stuff, some of the stuff I really don't have a lot to talk about, and then we'll finish off, as we progress through the episode, we'll get to the more meaty stuff that we'll have a lot to discuss. First up, we have the fix furnace fires. If you have been in a house lately, you've probably seen water heaters and furnaces, home furnaces. Previously, the furnaces would not contain fire. If you started a fire on that tile, it would burn down the house, and that has been changed to allow for these furniture items to accommodate fire. So that is basically all that this change was. I know we had someone on the forum discussing that pretty recently. So that change has come. Thank you to Irk for putting that in. Next, we have, with the changes that we talked about in the last couple of episodes about the battery overhaul, there were previously no disposable batteries. All batteries that had been changed, all the new light batteries and medium batteries, all of them could be recharged. And this changes that. Now there are some disposable batteries that are not meant to be rechargeable. They have twice the capacity of the highest capacity of whatever their size is, but they can't be recharged. It's that simple, and it's worth. And he did some other stuff. Or she did, Inglonius did some other stuff as well. For instance, it looks like they just fixed some of the tools that were not spawning with proper batteries. It is different PR, I believe, but now tools will also spawn with batteries in them. If you've been playing a lot, you've probably noticed that for a time there, after the battery overhaul, tools were spawning with no battery contained in them at all. That has been changed. Many tools that I'm seeing are starting to have battery magazines. So another change you've probably noticed, this is also from Irk. Previously, 2x4s were used for just about everything, and it never really made sense. And now there are wood panels, which is a new major construction component. 2x4s previously stood in for all wood constructions, which didn't make sense because, many things would require flat panels of wood as opposed to an actual 2x4. And so this has been changed. There are now wood panels and wood sheets, which is flat wood and large sheets of plywood, or you can think of them like that. You've probably noticed some of the recipes requiring these now. The easiest way to get them is to deconstruct existing furniture items for these new construction items. I don't believe some of them are craftable. I'm not sure how easily. Probably wood panel is craftable because it's just a small piece of flat wood, but if he's treating a wood sheet as plywood, that's probably not something the average survivor could craft. So again, the easiest way to get them, furniture, terrain deconstruction, and lumber yards. So wanted to point that out. Some people have been asking questions about the wood panels. It's just a new construction item, and you can get them in pretty decent numbers by deconstructing, larger pieces of furniture. Then we have the minefield change, which is something I'm very concerned about being very difficult. So if you've played the game, you know that minefields generally spawn in a big square with signs at each corner of the square. This has been changed. They are no longer square. They no longer show up. For instance, they are now buried, so previously you would see lumps of dirt where there was a mine. Now they show up as completely flush with the environment. They're no longer square, they're now asymmetrical, and in addition to that, the spawn locations for the signs have been randomized. I believe you're guaranteed to at least get one spawn. I believe, if I remember what I read about this, you're guaranteed to get at least 2 signs, but there's no guarantee which side they will be on. And I believe only 1 sign can spawn on any given side of the minefield. Now, when also to be noted is that if the minefield occurs on non-diggable terrain, like on a road, you will have the mines appear on the surface as opposed to being buried. So just you keep those eyes open, because I guarantee this is going to kill a bunch of folks who don't realize that this change has happened. They're going to see a sign and think it's the corner, and it's going to lead to their death. So really made minefields a lot more dangerous. I think this is a great change. I just think a lot of people are going to die to this because they're not going to be aware that this change came. Not you, though, because you're watching this show, so good job. We also have a change that allows professions to have starting pets. This is a really cool change. I don't think any of it is in the game. They mentioned using the canine officer to spawn with a canine. I don't know if that's a change in the game or if they were just doing that for testing purposes. Actually, it looks like that might be in the game. But this is pretty basic. It gives an optional field to when you're making a professions entry, which is the pet line. And then it is spawned in the game as tamed and friendly. So this is a pretty cool little thing that allows us to create professions that have starter pets. Odds are this will mostly occur as like dogs and cats, but I'm also wondering if you could use zombies as spawns. Maybe we could get like a necromancer, like a Michonne, with her slave biter type situation. I don't know. So I'm not sure the extent of this, but I saw it and thought that's pretty awesome. And so yeah, pretty sick. Thank you to David P.W. Brown for making this change. Next, we have the Experimental Mutant and its upgrades. This is a new monster, actually 2 new monsters that have been added to the game. One is an Experimental Mutant and one is an, what is it called? The Evolved Mutant. There's not a ton to note about this. I don't want to, spoil specific creatures other than to say they exist. However, I will point out that the Evolved Mutant, which is the upgraded version, is a Hulk level enemy. And so if you see that, I'm not sure. Usually the sprites reflect, like it's pretty easy to look at a brute and know it's a brute. It's pretty easy to look at a Hulk and know it's a Hulk. But if this is just an evolved mutant, it may or may not have a sprite that looks like a Hulk. So I just want to let you know this is a Hulk level enemy, according to Rark Graham's. That's horrifying. That's okay. According to this individual, it is a Hulk tier enemy. I imagine these will spawn mostly in labs and things like that. But it's I know a lot of people really like having mutant NPCs and mutant enemies. So this is a take on that. So yeah, so we won't go into detail on the actual stats or anything. We'll let you figure that out for yourself. Next, we have the Great Cardboard Overhaul. This is also by Irk. Basically, previously in the game, there was only 1 cardboard box. This is hoping to expand that. It added medium and large cardboard boxes, just to give so I remember there was some discussion around this pretty recently where people were complaining that cardboard boxes were all one size and plastic bags were all one size. And I believe that this is a step towards fixing that. Fixing container type items, but also he specifically references flat pack furniture, as well as the beggars faction. So I'm not 100% where all we will be seeing this, but I do like that this is being added. These are just more construction items, I assume, and obviously container items. Cardboard boxes are for containers. Just wanted to mention it. Not a lot to say about it. Next, we have new map extras, thanks to Nexus MR Mr. Sepp, I guess. Nexus MR Sepp? I don't know. Map extras, if you don't know, are the things that appear on the ground, like the minefield, the helicopter crash, the supply crates, the bodies that you'll find, the drug deals, things like that, are map extras. This is basically a map extra. It's not a new location per se. It affects existing locations. So like the minefield doesn't spawn new. It's not a special location. It's taking an already existing location and adding a minefield to it. And so there were a couple added, specifically dead vegetation, burned ground, and roadworks. So this is pretty neat, just adds a little bit to the flavor of the world. Here's an example of dead vegetation. You'll see just looks like a chunk of forest that has been overcome by some decay. Burned ground, same basic thing. It took a forest tile and reduced a lot of it to ash and cinder. And then finally we have the roadwork, which should appear in various locations, and they're just like potholes and stuff with a simple barricade to let people know to drive around it. I would point out that there may be some room for bugs for this. If you've played for a long time, you know that the map extras don't always line up. Sometimes you get a helicopter crash in a weird spot, or you find a minefield partially in a house or whatever. So I imagine there would be some bugs with this, especially given that we'll see. I think it's a great change. I think little things like this, I mean, it's not even a little thing. It's stuff like this that makes Cataclysm feel a lot more real. Obviously, we got a forest overhaul not that long ago that made forests look a lot more realistic, and having areas that have been decayed or burnt down will add to that. So I really like this. Just wanted to point this out. Not a lot I have to say about it. Just wanted to make people aware that it exists. Next, this is a very big change that I don't have a lot to say about because I did not dig into the code. Basically, we talked about the stomach contents and changes to the food system a few episodes ago. This was about a month ago, I would guess. And this is a continuation of that. Now, a basic rundown is what it says right here. Players now burn calories when doing activities. Previously, everything was centered around the fact that you needed around 2,500 calories per day, or kcals, or whatever that means exactly. But basically, this now changes it so that the number of calories you burn per day is actually based, or how many calories you need per day is actually based around how much activity you're doing. So if you're going out and you're chopping down trees all day, or whatever, you're going to be burning way more calories. You're going to need to eat more than if you sat in your base and just read all day. Now, another part of this that they wanted to add are obesity, overweight, and underweight characters. And this is something that's going to be addressed in a separate PR that's not in the game yet. However, this change is. So you will burn more calories if you do more work. Definitely something to keep an eye on. I know characters in Cataclysm fluctuate between tons of activity and no activity. One day, one week you'll sit in your base and read skill books all week. The next week you'll be out chopping down trees, fighting monsters, and that kind of stuff. So I know that our calorie content is now going to fluctuate a lot. And once again, this is a new change and it will need to be dialed in. I don't know where it's at right now or how much of an effect it really has on your character. But I wanted to point it out so people weren't, getting angry or confused over why their character suddenly needs, 3,500 calories a day instead of 2,500. So just wanted to point it out. This is something you just got to play with and get a feel for, I think. So, and of course they base this a lot of stuff on real world formulas, and they'll be again, this is something that's going to evolve over time, as well as the obesity, overweight, and underweight is something that will affect characters, and it's just a matter of seeing exactly how it will affect characters and how big of a hindrance it will be. So I wanted to point that out. Next, we have a new starting scenario. This is one of two new starting scenarios that have come down over the last couple weeks. Both are cool. Neither are... We'll talk about it. Basically, this adds a new starting scenario for the apartment rooftop. It is a surrounded start, so you will be spawning around a bunch of zombies. However, I checked it out. You do spawn on the downstairs, so you can immediately flee. With this door closed as well, so you can immediately flee if that's what you want to do. But it's pretty straightforward. You spawn on an apartment. Now that we've got some Z-level stuff going on, a lot of the newer buildings, we did get that change that allows you to see further the higher you are, on the higher Z-level you are. So this could be a great way to start the game inside of a town and still get the view of the map around you pretty easily. So I thought it was neat. Obviously, the apartment itself is it's not super difficult to navigate, but there is going to be a very large spawn density in an apartment building, and there's a fair number of spawns on the roof itself. So just wanted to point that out. Pretty cool. Always nice to see new scenarios. This was by Frozen Snow Fox. So thank you, Snow Fox. Next, we have Cursed Twist back again, putting in more work. This time we have a horse farm. Pretty simple. It's pretty big. It's a horse farm. It's gonna have a barn for the horses. Looks like they have a what do they call those? Indoor. This was an outdoor one. They called arenas. It's been so long since I've been around horse people. Whatever. Anyway, looks like stables and such, and I think they also made reference to chickens. I'm not sure. Here's some imagery. Looks like a hayloft. I guess those are horses. I don't know what the horse sprite looks like. Yeah, there are some chickens, so there's a chicken coop as well. Looks like a small greenhouse and a building, a home. And the basic point of this was to add another location where you could find horses in the game. So pretty straightforward. They did not put zombie spawns in this location, and it's a pretty large location, so it's gonna have an effect on your zombie density. But other than that, it's just one more place for animals to spawn, because currently it's a little difficult to find animals in the game that haven't been murdered or starved to death or whatever. So appreciate that, Cursed Twist. Again, this individual, I believe, has been putting in a lot of the rooftop changes, the additional rooftops over the last couple of weeks. And they are still doing that. So, yeah, I just wanted to verify that was Cursed Twist. And in fact, it is. They're still adding roofs to the game. Next, also by Cursed Twist, this is a much bigger deal it's a much larger map gen. This one is a redux on the mall that currently exists in the game. This one adds a second floor and begins to build a roof. Blah, blah. The mall was previously one floor. Now it is two. So always nice to see that. Might spice up the mall start a little bit. So this is yet another change that will affect the scenarios. I haven't taken a look at this in detail. When it's map gen, I usually just go, oh, that's neat. And then I try to find it in the game. So we'll get there eventually. But for now, the roof looks a little confusing. But it may be broken up into sections. I don't know. We're not going to talk about that. Just wanted to point out that the mall has gotten a facelift. It is now a 2-story mall, and I assume that the monster density and loot density have gone up considerably in a mall, so you might want to check that out. Next, more changes that affect scenarios. This one by the person that I cannot pronounce their name. I believe Gaji, I believe is what I fell on last time. Gaji. Anyway, this school has been updated. Previously, the school, if you haven't seen it, the school was single floor, and it had just an outrageous number of zombie spawns. And this has changed. It has added a second floor to the school, as well as adding certain rooms that make sense to be in a school, like a nursing station. I think they mentioned in a tech department, and then of course there's a second floor. Still no gymnasium in the school, I don't think. Which is fine. That's really the only... Oh, there's a gym. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I like that. So you got me covered. I should have known better than to doubt you. But anyway, and they've also reduced the number of spawns from students in the school. This so if you've ever played the school scenario start, it's one of the more difficult just because of the massive zombie density that was there, as well as the fact that the majority of them were children, which meant that you got huge morale debuffs and then wouldn't be able to craft and things like that. So hopefully this makes that starting scenario a little easier to palette. I'm interested to do it right now. I'm doing some YouTube videos of the various challenging starts, so we'll probably get to the school here eventually. So just wanted to point that out. Definitely check it out. Just so much good work. Everybody's knocking this map gen out of the park lately. So much new stuff, so many good, realistic takes on buildings. I love it. I love it. Okay, now the next 4, these are probably my favorite changes from the last couple of weeks. These 4 are all connected, but they've been done by different people, but they work together to create a new experience. So the first part of that is that David P.W. Brown has mainlined the Boats mod. If you've never played with the Boats mod, it's exactly what you think it is. It allows you to craft boats. This is done. It's a vehicle. It's just a vehicle that has a certain parts that make it able to float. And so I thought, and it comes with pre-constructed boats and things like that. So I just wanted to point this out because this is going to be useful in what we talk about next. And that is the prison on an island. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about how lakes and rivers and just water in general, the spawning of it in the game has improved. Much more natural, much more beautiful. I love it. It was one of my favorite changes that's happened recently. The changes to the waterways in Cataclysm. As a result, someone on Reddit apparently encouraged Knight Prianic to create an island-based prison. Now I'm going to show you the screenshots of it because it's pretty dang cool, but also understand that this is going to spoil a little bit the starting scenario, because there is now a scenario that allows you to start on the island prison. You not only have to escape prison, you have to escape the island as well. I was very, very excited when I saw this. As they say, there's no special or awesome loot, quests, or NPCs there currently, which is fine. And that is my experience. I'm currently, just so you know, I'm currently playing this scenario in my current Let's Play. I will, if I can figure out cards, I'll throw up a link right here. But if not, you can check the end of this video, the last 20 seconds. The end card will have a link to my Prison Island Escape video, and where we will be looking at the prison in great detail as we loot and search through. And that's the basic map gen right here. We're not going to go over that in too much detail, because honestly, just because I already did in my playthrough. As we were exploring it, we talked a lot about the logistics of a prison and where things should be located and things like that. I will say there is a laundry, there is a workshop, there is cafeteria, all the things you would expect from a prison, except for a commissary, which is fine. And then this continued to be tweaked in additional PRs, specifically making it so that it wouldn't spawn too close to the land. And again, this is entirely encapsulated by water, and it will be a fair distance from the land. I think the closest I've seen it is 2 or 3 tiles from the mainland. So it's too much to swim from the island. So little improvements. They also added a second floor, which consists of watchtowers and walkways. And then Rark Grames has added prisoner zombies. So previously, if you spawned in the prison or the island, well, maybe not the island prison, this might have gone up fast enough that the island prison only used prisoner zombies. But if you ever played the old Prison Escape, you wouldn't get prisoner zombies. You would get brutes, you would get regular old zombies, and I think cop zombies, all of which would drop loot that would possibly be inappropriate for being in a prison. So like the regular zombie might drop a motorcycle helmet. Well, it doesn't really make sense that a guy locked in a cell in a prison has a motorcycle helmet. So in order to rectify that a little bit, we've gotten prisoner zombies, which are pretty basic zombies that are not scary at all. And they've been added to prisons with prisoner clothing and items, and they get their own sprite, and they don't drop items like cowboy hats, bike helmets, or wedding dresses. Hey man, you never heard of a prison wife? Okay, anyway. Added prisoner zombies, added drops to the prisoner zombies, etc. And of course, we've also seen these during our playthrough of the island prison as well. Honestly, that's really it for the week. It felt like a lot more. This video actually isn't as long as I expected it to be. I didn't cover things in perfect detail. Because I realized that even though we're doing the show where we talk about a lot of the updates, I'm realizing more and more I think people don't want the core content spoiled. They just want to be kept aware of things that have changed. Like, it's one thing to say, okay, hey, there's an island prison now, but it's another thing to say, okay, there's an island prison now, and here's what the layout looks like. Here's the general strategy for escaping, things like that. So I think in these I'm going to do a little less in-depth explaining, unless it's something that's really complex, like when we had, so for instance, last week we had graves that were added to the game, the ability to bury coffins with your comrades in them. So I just quickly worked through it. It was a little confusing, but I worked through it pretty quickly, and we gave a brief tutorial rundown of how to put a corpse in a coffin, seal the coffin, bury the coffin, etc. So when it's like mechanics like that, we'll talk about it. But when it's actual map gen or creatures or whatever, I'm not going to go through and say, okay, well, this is the weak point of this particular creature. This is how you escape this particular scenario. That's not what this is about. This is just about keeping you up to date with some of the really cool new stuff that has been coming to Cataclysm. So, because like if I hadn't known that there was an island prison, I would have never checked the scenario list. I always just kind of mashed through the scenario list to create a new character. So, I just want to point these things out so that people can enjoy them, I guess. Maybe that's stupid. Maybe we don't need a show for that. I don't know. But you guys seem to like the show, so you keep doing that. In fact, we might switch back to weekly episodes because we've been getting so much stuff lately. For now, I think that's going to do it. There's nothing I really wanted to cover in detail this week. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.